Go ahead.
Thank you.
All right, we are missing one. You didn't hear from Gay?
I have not heard from him.
Okay.
Yeah, I at least think.
All right, it is 3:01, and we will call the tax increment reinvestment zone, or otherwise known as the TERS, to, we will open it, and thank you, everybody, for being here. Appreciate it. And do we have anybody for the, oh, we have an invocation listed on here. Oh, okay. All right, if you guys will join me in prayer. Lord, we just ask that you be with us as we deliberate. We always give you thanks for the great city that we live in, the opportunities and the challenges that you put before us. So just be with us as we make those decisions and face those challenges. And we just thank you for the blessings that you give us day by day. Amen.
Amen.
All right, visitors forum, do we have anyone?
We have no speakers.
All right, minutes from, was it the December meeting? That is how far back we went, right? Okay. Hope everyone had a chance to read them. And are there any changes that anyone has? If not, do we have a motion?
Move we accept the minutes as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, right hand? And they are approved. All right, Julie, you're going to give us some financial information.
I will. I will be brief today. Hope you guys are doing good this afternoon. So first, I just wanted to just give you a refresher look at your budget. So starting the year, you had $641,000. Budgeted property tax, you can see $339,000, and then interest revenue there for a total revenue of $365,000 with no expenditures budgeted. As you know, you can budget projects throughout the year, but those weren't budgeted in the beginning of the year. So with no expenses budgeted, that would bring an approximate ending fund balance for this year of right at $1 million. And then I have the following two columns, which is activity through the 1st of March for y'all. Usually we do everything as of month end, but y'all's is a little bit different. And since we only meet twice a year, I thought I would give you the most recent. And then your year-end estimate to the right. And I'll talk to you about that a little bit more in detail on the next slide. So through the 1st of March, you had collected to date $798,760 in property taxes. When you subtract the base year from that, the increment that goes to the TERS is $256,523. So you can see the outstanding amount. That's amount still owed by property taxpayers for bills that were sent out back in October. So there's some half pay agreements in there, and so you can see the outstanding delinquent amount is $55,687. We did keep the estimated property tax revenue as your budget for now. It's too early in the year to say that we're changing that estimate. And then you can look down at the bottom where you have total expenses, which there are none budgeted to date, and all of your previous commitments have been met. So updated fund balance as of March is $907,000. So we fully expect you to be right on budget, barring anything that we were not expecting. So any questions about that?
Anybody have any questions for Julie?
And Julie, we don't have any anticipated refunds or adjustments?
Not yet. We did have one last year that was about $21,000, I believe, somewhere close to there, from some litigation that was taking place on property tax prior year, but nothing right now. Now it is early in the year, so protests, we're already looking at, protests and those kind of things as we're doing the 26 budget, but we haven't seen anything filed, so nothing outstanding within the TERS.
Okay. Thank you, Julie.
Yes,
appreciate it.
On to you.
All right, Drew, I think you've got some information for us.
Yes, ma'am. I want to give just a brief introduction to the draft chapter for the downtown plan for the Kerrville 2050 update. Freese and Nichols will be back on the 26th to meet with the Downtown Advisory Committee. That's why we invited Mr. Taylor and Mr. Rector to join today to get just an introduction to the chapter. If you don't have a copy, we can get you one before you leave. It's 60 pages, so we didn't want to put that in the backup and expect you guys to try to print that, so.
But make sure you get a copy, all of you, if you haven't. It's good to read. Well, it looks like everybody's got one.
Everybody got one?
Okay, super, thanks.
Excellent. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to give high-level introduction, let you guys kind of chew on it for another couple weeks. The sections throughout that, you've got the downtown plan, intro and analysis, the guiding principles and some sample action items, the illustrative plan, which is pending, proposed downtown framework plan, and that's what Friesen Nichols presented last time, chapter on, or a section on downtown transportation, character and branding, and then the implementation is also pending. Friesen Nichols is going to do the implementation plan for all of the chapters after the main chapters themselves are drafted, because the implementation is a separate chapter of the comp plan. Happy to go through if you guys have any specific questions, if you've had a chance to look through it. It really was more just introduction to let you guys peruse at your leisure.
I had thought about that the surface parking that we now have takes up 15% of the land area in downtown Kerrville. Is that, it doesn't sound like it sounds like it's very little, and it really is. But in reality, when you look at the map, it looks like maybe it's better than it sounds.
Right. There is quite a bit of parking. Obviously, all of this except the parking garage and on-street parking is private property. So some owners may have no parking signs or parking for their business only. But there is, as you can see, quite a few parking lots throughout. And they did identify some of the street parking on Earl Garrett. But there is quite a bit of parking throughout the TERS boundary for sure. The downtown core obviously is more limited just because of the way it was developed. Yes, sir.
Observation, I think that if you look at the whole nation we live in, any downtown you look at probably has more space devoted to parking than one would wish for. You know, there's even a great book called Asphalt Nation, you know, so much is paved over, but there's still a serious issue downtown. And it's how it's used and how it's distributed, and I think you can see people who are searching for a place to park conveniently and not finding it, and you can see private lots that are substantially empty, and I can point out a bunch of those without much difficulty. So I think that the fact that there's that much parking doesn't mean there's that much parking available or convenient or that it's functioning very well. And I think it's one of the most critical issues that we have, because if we're trying to create a pedestrian environment, people have to get there, park conveniently. Downtown seems to be thriving, but I've noticed just in a very tangible way that finding a place to park can be a challenge unless those people perceive and understand, like the parking garage and a few other things. So I think that section, there should be a little more nuance to it about how parking is used and, you know, how it's accessible to people, you know. I mean, I really think there is a parking problem. And it's not because of lack of space, but it's just distribution and how we use it, you know.
Right.
I think it would be helpful if instead of having the entire TERS area, we could have the core downtown and see what the percentage parking is there.
Okay.
That would be, I think, a helpful breakdown.
Is it possible to do public parking versus just parking in that area but available to the public? Because I know a lot of that being private parking, you know, even just around here, this building.
Okay, see what we can do on that. Great points. Some of the early action items that we've talked about with the Downtown Advisory Committee, of course, are improving pedestrian infrastructure, improving parking. I know the Main Street Board is also looking at parking, and that'll tie right into our next comments. We'll dive into more on that. Any other comments on the chapter itself?
I'm just sticking for parking.
Mhm.
And I'm rapidly looking at this map, but and I'm assuming that the calculation on how much parking there is includes what's been marked on this map. But we look at, there's a very large parcel that's frankly owned by Crenwell to park new cars on, that's part of the parking, which, that's certainly not public parking. The police station's parking is in here, that's not public parking.
Sure.
And, there might be others in kind of looking at it rapidly, but it's, we've got private parking, but we don't have like the fenced off parking on the Callow property, but we have the non-public parking across the street. That's privately owned and marked for towing, though I know I've never been towed from there, so.
Right.
Howard brings up a good point. There's some nuance here that's really missed in the parking.
Okay. Take a look at that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this map is useful to see all of the space that is a parking lot, but I would love to see in the TERS district, what is public parking available for anybody to go and park. I can do a layover.
All right, anything else? Like I said, take this home, either put yourself to sleep with it or enjoy a Saturday morning read. Make notes as you see fit, and we'll meet with Freese and Nichols in 2 weeks to go through in full detail. So any comments you can provide then, they'll certainly be welcome. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me.
All right, thank you. Anything else, anybody before? Andrew, hello.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
That's all right.
Thank you for
You're here. So, anything else before we move on?
Thank you for giving us
Yes.
something to look at.
Absolutely. I know Freese and Nichols kind of bumped this one up early so we could get it to you early.
We appreciate
They're
it.
still working
That's
on
good.
all of the chapters, but we knew we had the Downtown Advisory Committee meeting coming, and I wanted to get it in your hands as soon as possible.
Are these pending areas, number 4 and number 8, will those be available on the 26th?
I don't know. I'll have to check. The implementation, I assume not, because they're going to build out the implementation for the entire comp plan at the tail end of the project. But the illustrative plan, I'll check and see if that's coming.
Okay. All right, moving on to number 5. And Drew, I believe this is also you.
Yes. So council passed a resolution to apply for a CDBG block grant. That's Community Development Block Grant, looking at sidewalk improvements. So this is a Department of Agriculture downtown revitalization program. The application is due April 3rd. Once they go through those and get the nod to get a full application, that'll be due in August. Awards notified in fall, and grant agreements would begin in February of '26.
Another comment, Dr. Rector might want to chime in on this one, but we had a recent meeting with the city planner and assistant city manager about the block grant, as it relates to the Main Street program, and a part of the application was to include improvements to the parking garage to make it more accessible. Is that, I don't see that mentioned here, but it just says sidewalks, but is that
Yes.
right? And Dr. Rector, did we not agree that was gonna happen?
Yeah, I think that was our primary emphasis, was
Okay.
try to improve the parking garage, make it more accessible, more friendly, more safe feeling, and maybe even more attractive.
Right. I'll go through kind of this and we'll touch on that as well. So again, here's the calendar. Up to this point, application is due April 3rd. It is for up to $1 million grant. The minimum match is $20,000. So what we're asking TERS board to do is commit a matching grant of $100,000. With talking with some of the Department of Ag staff, they feel that that would certainly help weight our application over others if we've got a larger match than the minimum. Overall, the program is elimination of slum or blighted conditions, benefit low to moderate income persons. So what we talked about with Main Street was parking garage improvements, whether that be lighting, signage, and security, kind of the primary focuses. Sidewalk improvements, installing some sidewalks, rehabilitating some sidewalks, possible lighting and ramps. All of those fit within the parameters of the grant. There is a minimum or a maximum amount that I think we could apply to the garage. So public parking improvements would be limited to 250,000 of that total amount. So what we were recommending is consistent with the downtown plan that we're working on. Add sidewalks throughout the Main Street area, basically to fill that gap, get as much as we can, or at least ask for as much as we can. So we need to do, between now and August, do some survey and figure out what gaps we have in sidewalks, any improvements we can make to the pedestrian component of downtown, make it more walkable. Just also, like you said, ties right back into that parking issue. You can park in a public or private lot and feel safe walking to wherever you're going. Might help change some of that perception of downtown.
Bruce Drackey had brought up last time, even looking at a change in traffic flow might improve the width of our sidewalks and the use of our street and sidewalks. Is that part of your plan, or?
I don't anticipate that being part of this grant. That may be action items as part of the downtown plan, because that would require a lot more engineering than we can get done by August to submit for a plan. But I think that'll be a good action item for the downtown plan for future considerations.
We have connecting downtown to the University Park.
Right, University area
Yes.
down south towards G Street.
Yes. Is
Um,
that included in this?
So one of the things I've got to dig a little deeper on the grant itself, are we going to be limited to the Main Street boundary that the state has? Or can we go as far as the TERS boundary? The Main Street area obviously is a smaller boundary. So if we're limited there, we'll focus on that area for the grant itself. If we're not limited by that boundary, then we could look at, my suggestion would be focus on Water Street from Francisco Lemos all the way to G Street, see how much of that we can get, and then start looking at the kind of smaller side streets, making that connection.
This is a 10-to-1, we're putting in 100,000, hoping to get $1 million back.
Right.
I'm sorry, maybe I missed
That
it.
sounds like a pretty good return.
Where's this grant coming from? Where's the
Department of
grant?
Agriculture.
Department of Ag, got it.
That's the downtown revitalization program.
We use that money toward the River Trail section along, that's heading down toward G Street?
I don't think so, but I don't remember why.
Oh, because it's not a quality of life.
Yeah,
in
it's not a
different-
quality of life
It's a
grant.
different category, never mind,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was not a good question.
That was a great question, but no, I don't think that would qualify.
Don't they have as sort of a key feature, working with lower and middle income
Yes.
people? So it has to kind of tie into the economics and employment.
And
And I think one major argument is with all the restaurants and other employers in the core district, you know, that's certainly a key element of that population.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we know how many grants they intend to award?
I do not. I'll look that up and see.
I would also love to know if it is just isolated to the Main Street area or if it can expand to all of TERS.
Okay.
Andrew, this was a grant that they didn't seek us out. You found out, you had information about it.
Michael handed this one to me. I'm not sure where it came from.
Okay.
Do you know?
It is something we sought out. I mean,
We sought out, okay.
yeah, we see these pretty regularly come up and we look to
Okay.
see which ones we're eligible to apply for.
Okay.
I like the 10 times return.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
And so initially, what do you have to put in that initial letter? The one that needs to go April 3rd? That's an application form that they give you?
Yes, it's
Okay.
their form that they provide.
That they provide, okay. And do we know how long it will take for us to know after that?
Sometime between April and August.
Right.
And we have people on city staff who can work on this application.
Yes.
Do we know what the requirements are afterwards? Like, not just the reporting requirements afterwards, but whether it's follow-up, anything like that? The post-award requirements?
Let me see. Reimbursement?
It's reimbursement, all those CDBGs are.
Okay.
So there won't be.
Final project review. Since it is a reimbursement grant, it'll just be final project review.
Okay, just show pictures that we completed it? Okay.
Invoices
They
and,
wanna know what we spent.
And this isn't necessarily an all or none. I mean, they could give us 50,000 instead of, or 500,000 instead of.
I believe so. So you did the last CBDG grant.
Yes, on the last one, remember when we made our application, they came back and said they allocated so much for design, so much for construction, all that. So it really just depends, I think, on how they decide to spread the total funding pot, maybe how many applicants there are and multiple factors that we don't control. So we really don't know. That's why having that match is so important because it gives us a leg up compared to people who don't have it.
But it could be less
Could be
than
less.
$1 million.
And if it
Okay.
goes less, the match is a percentage, what they require, so.
Okay. All right, other questions? There's really not a downside to this.
No, if we don't get the grant, then obviously we're not spending that match and you guys would keep that money. If we are awarded the grant, then whatever that percentage comes out to what we're awarded, come back for that, right? It takes final action. Yeah,
Go to council too.
right.
All right, anyone else? Comments, questions?
I'll make a motion.
Make a motion.
I'd make a motion that we would allocate up to $100,000 in matching funds to support the city of Kerrville's application for the Texas Department of Agricultural Downtown Revitalization Program grant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All in favor, right hand, please.
We need,
Sorry, who seconded?
Dr.
Oh,
Rector.
it'll have to be a TERS board member.
I second it.
Sorry.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. And was there something else you needed, Julie? No. Okay.
That'll do it.
Get the
But
vote?
again, did you get the vote?
We got the vote.
You got the vote. Okay. All right. Good deal. All right.
Can I vote?
No,
Okay, so
but it's noted.
only our TERS members can
Right.
vote.
Yes.
Yes, okay, we're clear. All right. Okay,
Yeah.
And a mint and water.
is there anything that anyone would like to specifically mention for a, future agenda? I don't believe we need to go into executive session for anything. So, anything for future? I just say, we've got to do more with our parking garage and maybe before this, maybe a sign go on Sidney Baker that says free parking that way. I think the advisory board's looking at that, Main Street, but we just need to do some things that give us direction to that, and it's there, it's free.
Michael's working with,
We have been looking at it for a while. Not professionally, not an architect involved. There was a former plan that was done a couple of years ago. I forgot the name of the architect.
Peter Lewis.
And it certainly visually was very attractive. Only went so far though, because some of the issues that you're pointing out are very complex. The trees are quite beautiful. If you look at some of the early photographs, the trees are almost non-existent, but today, they sort of branch out over the street, and they come all the way down to the street level. So no matter what kind of signage you tried to do that you would normally do at a higher level so people could see it approaching it, is almost impossible unless there's something to be done. And then another issue is we're concerned about, well, somebody pointed out, you know, almost every murder mystery you watch starts out in a parking garage with somebody running for their life. And there is a good lighting system in the garage, but it's still not that effective. It comes on in increments, and even at the brightest, it's not quite as intense. So there are a lot of different issues like that. So one member of our committee is going to give a report next week. Then we do have to turn to professional design, though, because these are our ideas, but that signage thing is very tricky. First of all, even if you have a sign close to the parking garage, if you're not anticipating it and you're in that very heavy traffic, you're not even going to know that it's there. You know, you're going to be passing that sign before you can really get a sense of it. Then also, if you look, the entrance is all the way at the back, and there's no signage on either side street, Water or Main Street. So you're looking down a very long corridor with nothing at all indicating. And then when you get to the intersection, and if you look, you see the parking garage sign that when you're up close to it, it's about the height of this, but from a distance, it looks like a little tiny thing. So making that happen. And then the other thing is there's some discussion about how can we do some creative lighting on the exterior and make it more of a building that has some excitement about it that fits in. You'll realize when you look at the map, it's by far the most massive building downtown. It's enormous. I mean, I've never seen a garage that big in a community this size, which is a great asset, but there it is. Yeah. So those are all design issues that we have to go back to the city and kind of interface and get some real strong input, I think, and design input. And then there's another thing. I understand there's a private entity or a non-city entity that has some say over what's going to happen on the exterior, which is kind of a curious requirement. And apparently there's been kind of a veto in the past for some of those improvements. So it's not an easy thing, but
I have a question. I know we have a sign, I believe, on Sydney Baker. I want to say, I'm going to have to go walk it, but isn't there a sign that has like our hospital?
Yes.
You know, is it something as simple as just changing out that sign where all that information is still there with the parking circle and an arrow?
Right.
To turn there on.
We do have two different sets of signs. There are some wayfinding signs around town, and those are kind of the dark brown information signs that point to downtown.
Who looks at a brown sign?
TxDOT standard. So, and then a hospital is, I think, a blue informational sign. We can certainly talk to TxDOT and see if that's an option or not, or if that's restricted just to hospital, because unfortunately, for the garage, the hospital is probably more important wayfinding.
Right.
Michael is also talking to TxDOT about putting up signage on the Sky Bridge. For a long time, we were told no, and at least we've got a maybe.
Okay.
So we're looking at that to see what,
that could help.
it was kind of a soft yes if it meets our standards. Well, what are what are TxDOT standards? And we don't know yet. So,
And
Yeah, we went online and looked at some lighting, and in other places, some of these parking garages just glow, and they really have a welcoming feel to them. You've got lighting coming out of the garage. Signage may not be as important if your eyes are attracted to the welcoming lighting of the garage. So there's some ways we can work on this to make it better in a number of ways.
I mean, I know I'm going to be the unpopular person sitting up here, but I don't personally feel, I've never felt unsafe in our parking garage or like I'm going to get axe murdered. The issue has never been not wanting to park there because I don't feel safe. It's because it's inconvenient to whatever I'm doing downtown. So that is really, I don't think that it's an issue of we need to make it prettier. I still don't want to walk that far. And not that I'm just, to be honest, of course I have parked there and I'm willing to do it, but I feel like, I don't know that that's necessarily, the issue is that it's not pretty enough or welcoming enough because I'm not hanging out in the parking garage. So I think at the end of the day, if we have a safe place to pull our vehicles and, you know, walk into, not by personal safety, but it's covered, which is wonderful. It's easy to get in and out of. I think it's just, like Judy had mentioned, is a lot of times people don't know that it's there and the entrance is on the back side. I personally believe it's a signage issue, or it's something as simple as just like a free parking turn here.
Right.
That sign alone is going to pull people around to that area. So, you know, beautification to a parking garage is not necessarily, I personally high on my list of things, but I think, you know, that's my unpopular opinion.
Well,
Have we partnered with any of, like, the chamber or convention visitors bureau for when people are coming in from out of town to almost do like a media blitz of, hey, we have this great parking garage. You can park here. You can go to these various restaurants, these various shops. Here you go. I know the teenagers really like the parking garage. They like to go and do their photo shoots, hang out afterwards, whatever. So getting just some of that media blitz.
Good idea.
let me give you a story that I got from downtown. One of the new businesses in town opens early, and they had 2 employees, both women, who are not as brave as you are. And they were afraid to park in the parking garage when it was dark. They came to work at 6 o'clock. So they were parking within the, what I call the Bank of America lot, far in the corner of the Bank of America lot, and walking to where they were employed rather than parking in the parking garage because they felt uncomfortable. And so that's one story that was related to me. So I think people feel differently. Their
Of
comfort
course.
level is different.
Yeah.
And people that were really wanting to get parking in the parking garage are people who are waitresses, people who have minimum wage jobs that we want to bring downtown for employment. That's so we want the parking garage to be available for those people so that they don't take up parking places on the street that could be used for customers. We're really pushing very hard in the 700 block of Water Street right now to make sure that only customers park on that street. We're having meetings with all of the business owners, with all of the building owners, talking with those people as to where they can park other than on the street, so that the street is available for customers, because it is limited, and the viability of a business often depends on how their customers can park. You know, it's also perception. In San Antonio, if you could park within 2 blocks of where you wanted to go, you were ecstatic. In Kerrville, if you can't see the front door from where you're parking, you feel like you're being put upon. So there is some perception there.
Absolutely. I work on the 700 block of Water Street, and I do find myself parking in the garage, just because parking is very limited downtown.
We're working
So,
on that.
Yeah, but, you know, again, I think maybe you're right. I am just a odd case. I don't,
No, I don't think you're odd. I
I
think
never feel uncomfortable in there, but
But also, I think part of it is we know it. So it's, you know, it's not a place where we normally have issues.
you're right.
And so we are familiar with that, and I'm not sure everyone from another town outside feels that way. I think Bill's word welcoming is what we're after for that building. It's just, are there cameras?
Yes,
There are cameras.
there are cameras on all 3 floors now.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
Maybe just signage that says there's cameras might help some of those folks know that there is security measures in place. So we've got a couple ideas. Like Mr. Taylor said, Main Street's kind of dug in pretty heavy on it, trying to figure out what makes it more welcoming, especially to those that aren't from Kerrville and aren't familiar with it. So we'll keep working on that as part of this application and see what we can get.
Drew, would you explain so everyone understands? We have the advisory board, we have Main Street, we have this board. How are they integrated here? What?
So, obviously, today is your regular TERS board meeting. The Downtown Advisory Committee is comprised of the TERS board plus a liaison from Historic Downtown Business Association, Dr. Rector, and Main Street Board, Mr. Taylor. So that committee is specifically working on the downtown chapter of the comp plan update. And then separate from that is the Main Street Board that works through the Main Street program.
Good, thank you. All right, anybody have further questions, comments? Anything? Oh,
So with all these ideas, I'm just curious, what will happen?
will you come to the mic, please?
Never get to do this. So we've talked about all these things on the Main Street Board as well, and so I just would like, I'm Delane Sigerman, I'm off Bandera Highway. I just wonder what will happen with the ideas. Will you put them in the plan? Will all of these things they just talked about be in that suggestion?
Yes.
That Friesen Nichols? Okay. Like
Yeah.
even the little A-frame sign that can be put out on the sidewalk without very little inconvenience or cost.
Those are allowed downtown currently.
I don't ever see them though. I mean, that's, I don't know when they do it, maybe festival times
Grape
and things
Juice
like that.
does.
They have one.
The businesses do it.
Pookies,
Yeah.
I think, has one now.
Cookies,
We can.
There's a couple,
They
but
have, like,
yes, we'll,
I just wondered when I'd see these ideas on paper
yeah, so
later. That was
the implementation chapter is kind of at the tail end of the comp plan update, when we'll see those detailed items. So that'll go before, it won't come back, let me rephrase that. Friesen Nichols won't be bringing it back to the downtown committee, but staff certainly can. And then the overall comp plan goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council for adoption.
I have a sort of quick question. It's kind of minor, but maybe not. Transitionally, temporarily, one of the discussions about the garage is a sandwich board sign that would be put out periodically, not every day. And they're not terribly expensive, but how do we pay for that? We've got a quote. One of our committee members will be bringing that to the board next week.
Okay.
And of course, we want to be sure that it's legal, that it's not, that it's in sync with what you guys expect. And so I don't think we're talking about a lot of money, but maybe if we had 2 or 3 of those, we're talking about in the range of $1,500, something like that, professionally made. And they would probably be put out by, we're even talking about our committee, I don't know how far we can go with this, but doing a little more volunteer work also in terms of the garage, being sure that it's tidy and clean. The city does that now, but we're talking about getting more on top of it even than, is currently the case. So
Okay.
It's a good committee. They're really ready to go.
Yes.
But that's my question. How do we pay for that?
Julie left already. She had another meeting to go to, so I don't know. Yeah, ask in the Main Street Board meeting. You said next week, right? Yeah, ask Julie. You might send her an email ahead of time so she can look into that.
So Main Street meets next week, Wednesday at
9 a.m.
9, okay. And then is the advisory board, is that open to the public? And-
Yeah, they're open to the public.
And when do they meet?
That's third Wednesday of every month at 9 o'clock. That's the advisory board.
Oh, that's the
Sorry,
advisory board.
That's the Main Street Advisory Board.
Historic Downtown Business Alliance is the first Tuesday of each
Okay.
month at 5:30.
Okay.
And our
Next meeting of the Downtown Advisory Committee is the 26th.
is March 26th. Yes, 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks, yeah.
That'll be our last meeting.
Yes, that'll be a last meeting with Friesen Nichols. If we need to convene with staff, we can. It's just not in our scope for them to come back for another visit.
There's not an Arcadia meeting that evening.
No, it's just downtown.
And it's in here.
It'll be in here. The Downtown Advisory Committee is TERS Board plus HDBA liaison, which is Dr. Rector, and Main Street, which is Mr. Taylor.
And is this document kind of their update? Is that what we're?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to look at this and
Make notes and
get
be
back to
ready
you pretty quick.
to discuss.
That sounds like, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, we're scheduled for 4 o'clock. And a Dr. Rector asked if we could move it earlier. I've got to check with Freese and Nichols still, if that fits their timeline. I know we moved it from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, but I don't remember why,
On the 26th?
on the 26th. So for right now, 26th at 4 o'clock. If time changes, I'll let you know as soon as possible.
There's a UGRA board meeting at 3 o'clock that day, and I'm chairing that. I sort of need to be there.
All right. Anything else before we adjourn? Okay, at 3:42, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.